where literacy evolves with technology and language proficiency. This is the Multiliterate Mind podcast with Dr. Liza Trejo and Marnina Falk-Coleman.
Hello, and welcome to the Multiliterate Mind. I am Dr. Liza Trejo, and I'm joined by my colleague, Marnina Falk-Coleman.
Hi, Liza.
Hi, Marnina. Glad to be back together.
Yes.
So together we are exploring how language proficiency, multiliteracy, and human connection are evolving in an AI-driven world. We are so excited to welcome our guest, Dr. Rolla Elsaiary.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast, Rolla. We're so excited to have you with us.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here today.
Before we dive into the conversation, I'm going to kick it back to Liza to give a bit of background about you so our viewers and listeners know who they're listening to.
Yes. So Dr. Rolla Elsaiary is an educator, researcher, and assistant principal at an Arabic immersion school. She has a doctorate in educational practice and innovation focused on STEM and less commonly taught languages. She is currently pursuing an MBA with a concentration in artificial intelligence. We are very excited to hear more about all of that. Dr. Elsaiary is passionate about leveraging AI, project-based learning, and innovative strategies to support multilingual learners and elevate the role of less commonly taught languages in the language classroom. Her work bridges research and practice to empower educators and students in culturally responsive, future-ready learning environments.
Thank you so much, Liza. So I want to just kick it off with your story, Rolla. So can you take us into your personal journey with language and what led you to focus on Arabic and less commonly taught languages in your work?
Yes, I grew up in Middle East, in Egypt. I grew up as a bilingual. So I was navigating Arabic at home, and then I was learning English at school. So at the very early stage, I saw language, it's not just as a vocabulary or grammar to be learning in school, but it's as a tool for thinking, questioning, and making sense, of the world. I did pursue different career. I was in the financial career. I was an investment consultant, and I was traveling. I was lucky enough to travel the world. And when I went to work in UK, I was lucky enough to be able to serve some clients who speaks Arabic. And at that point, it hit me like how important languages are. I was, English wasn't my first language, and having the opportunity to travel, work, and speak in English, and then serve other clients. And I was maybe one of the very few who was able to speak Arabic over there. So it was kind of helpful for the company. I moved to the United States, and I decided to quit financial career and look really into my kids and education and how I wanted to be involved in their lives and stuff like that. So I started with education, and I started the very, very small scale of teaching Arabic in the United States because there were any Arabic teachers, and I wanted to teach Arabic for my kids. I wanted to learn the language. And from there started, fall in love with education and teaching. And I moved up from there by getting certified and then working in public school and take it from there. And here I am now.
That's amazing.
Wow.
And were you part of creating the Arabic immersion school you now work at?
I started the Arabic immersion school after it opened, 3 years after it opened. So I wasn't completely the one who, from the founders, but I did help in establishing the curriculum and building the curriculum with other teachers and educators as well. Yeah.
That's amazing to go from no Arabic available to a full immersion school that offers it.
Yeah.
That
That's
actually
a big challenge.
Well, that just reminds me of how immersion started initially in Canada. It was a group of interested parents who wanted their children to learn another language. They said our kids deserve to learn another language, and it wasn't necessarily their home language of French, but they wanted them to get a chance to learn a different language, which was important to them in Canada was French. And so this group of parents got together and said, we're going to do this, and we're going to build an immersion school. And that's really one of the big origins of immersion programs. And so the power of parents getting involved and caring about language and building something for not only their kids, but for all kids and future generations. That's so exciting. I didn't know that was a part of your story. That's
Yeah.
super
It
exciting.
has actually started the same here from what I've heard from the stories from the founders. It's a community that calls for it. And we were lucky enough to have really involved community members who involved in education and even the district that I work in right now. And they were able to get their voices out and establish the school. And even comparing now, I feel like we are pretty much the only public school in the state that teach 100% of their students in Arabic.
Wow.
And that's to me is like, I feel like it's a very unique school, like,
Yeah.
not just a normal one. So I'm very lucky to be here.
I think that's awesome, and Arabic is such a growing and important language. And
Mhm.
something that I hear is interesting from your story, sharing the want for the kids to be able to communicate in the language. I know Arabic has there's a difference between the written and the spoken. And teaching
Yeah.
Arabic in a proficiency setting is really unique in that, and in that focus on communication and not just on the memorizing the structures and vocabulary. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like, and how in your classrooms you think about teaching proficiency as a way to reach that goal of communication?
So it's very interesting because it was an eye opening for me when I started working here. I've
Mhm.
seen so many students who actually used Arabic just to memorize vocabulary or learn a grammar, but not as a tool for thinking. And this is when it hit me because I also had to teach Arabic science in the Arabic language. And when I taught science in Arabic language, I personally hated science all my life because I was learning it from a different language and I hated the scientific words and terms and I didn't understand half of them. And this is when I felt like,
Yeah.
well, let's just see how can we have Arabic in a more meaningful way for and simpler way for the students to understand and give it a purpose to communicate, not just a language to learn. So when we started, for instance, the first project based learning I ever did, which is that I'm a big believer of that, is instead of having the students learn a plant life cycle, for instance, I would tell them how potatoes grow in your backyard. Let's make that as a project. And that was
Mm.
like just asking them that question sparks their curiosity. And they did not think about it as it's a science unit. They think about it as something from real life experience. They wanted to impress their parents. They wanted to grow vegetables in the backyard. Let's just learn about it. And from there, I felt like, well, I have to teach them vocabulary words to be able to communicate and use it to learn how to grow vegetables. And this is how it started, very, very simple way. So we explored ideas, we tried to create meaning, and this is where STEM and project-based learning came to me, and later AI also came. So they gave Arabic a purpose. Like language became the vehicle for inquiry, collaboration, real thinking, not just the end goal is just the language to communicate.
You
Mhm.
did that so intuitively. I like how you
Yeah. Mm.
explained that it was such an organic process for you. It just made sense. It was this
Yeah.
intuitive
Mhm.
process. And it reminds me, I know there's a lot of, I work lot with immersion schools and districts across the country. And I know that the Virginia schools, their immersion program have worked a lot with project-based learning as well, because there's
Hmm.
this connection but that you said between the real life and language. And what really stood out to me, you said it in your introduction too, and you said it just now, that you understood about thinking and questioning in the language because that's how you
Hmm.
learned it. So it's like you made that connection with your students in STEM, and of course related that to PBL. And I just wonder, I guess I wonder, in your opinion, is that something that's been missing? That not all teachers in language teaching, whether it's immersion or any language, maybe they're not making that connection of you got to be able to think in the language and not just memorize it.
I really think so. I think so. So it started when we asked the students, did the student use the correct verb and memorize these words? And then the minute we finish the class, they forget about it. They don't really use it anymore.
Mhm.
But instead, I would just ask, could they explore an idea? Could they maybe collaborate in Arabic? Can they make an audience? Can they present something, talk about something in Arabic? And this is when it hits me is that we really have to think differently. We not just memorize words and grammar because right now, like I don't see like like literacy is, to me, is not just reading and writing anymore. It's multimodal. And this is when also technology came, right? Like it's visual, it's digital, it's collaborative. And when technology, especially AI, has forced us to confront that gap, it's pushing us to like what means to be proficient, what counts as understanding, and how learners should show what they know. I've seen so many students at the beginning of my early teaching career that they get so bored of Arabic. They don't like to be in the Arabic class because it's so challenging and it's normal. It's level
Mhm.
4 difficulty language.
Mhm.
They were enforced to speak in Arabic all the time. They are lacking vocabulary. They don't know what to say. So when we started focusing about projects, it started like a very mini task first. So we do tasks that target one communicative skill, and then we put them together to build a project and give it a meaning. So it's kind of sort of also task-based instruction if the classroom or the teacher focusing only in language, but really project-based learning had a bigger meaning. It has a deeper thinking. They take these tasks, they learn it, they learn how to communicate, they how to make a scenario, how to do a dialogue or an interview or a presentation, but then they produce something else with it. And that creates more curiosity for the students and show more interest as well.
I love that, and I love this idea of really seeing the language they're learning as applicable beyond the walls of the classroom,
Yes.
that they're learning it for a purpose and connecting to the real world and real applications. Can you maybe give an example of one of your favorite projects that you did in an Arabic class? I know you talked about that challenge of students really struggling to find the joy in that language learning and find that success.
Hmm.
I loved your story about the potatoes. I'm just curious if there's like another one that also kind of exemplifies what you said in terms of that small task-based learning that built to a bigger project.
We did actually few projects.
Mhm.
One of the there's a project that became really not famous but became very popular in Houston, that we
Low
had
key
our
famous. Low key
yeah
famous is what they would say now.
kind of. But we had sixth graders. They usually learn world geography. And we had in Rice University a few scholars who wanted to look into the architecture of what we call Mudif. Mudif is a guest house that's very, very well known in Iraq, which is a country in the Middle East.
Mhm.
So they decided to build Mudif, like it made out of reeds. They brought the reeds from Iraq to Houston, Texas, and they
Wow.
actually did build Mudif and did the architecture for it. So they were talking about, they're reaching out to schools and different ones, like different organizations to come and look it up. And when I saw that, it just, it hit me as like, well, our sixth graders, they learn world geography. So how about if we can teach them about, Middle East countries? Let's dig into Iraq. Where's Mudif originated? Where it came from? And that's what we did. We worked with the social studies teacher at that time, and I even stepped into the classroom and I taught some of the students myself about the history of Iraq. We digged into how Mudif originated, what's the use of Mudif, which is a little guest house that hosts, and it's meant to be to solve problems and to get two different parties together to agree on things. And
Wow.
then at that time as well, they
So
have to
important.
provide food and drinks and herbal tea, like all very traditional style. We taught them that part of the world, and then we taught them history. And then we started talking about going and visit a model of Real Madif, which is where we're going to take them to a field trip to Rice University. And they went there. They were blown away about the structure, the architecture of it, and they actually went inside it. So they sat inside and we brought them. We had an Iraqi parent who actually made some snacks and like
That's so
little cookies
cool.
for them and herbal tea. It was really fun for them to get that experience and to have that taste. But then we were talking about, okay, we're going to have to visit quickly because that motif we have to break it down again. So the students started questioning, like, why we have to break it down, why we don't just leave it.
Mm.
So I started talking to them about weathering. and how the reeds the weather of Houston is not really good for having that reeds to be built on for, for few years or for good years. So they started doing a research, and they put the research hat on to start learning about the different types of weather between Iraq and between Houston, Texas, and they did that analysis and comparison. The students decided to learn more about it and present their work and how they find out the differences between two different countries. And some group of students, they decided to do it as a website. They present their work through a website, like a little link, and they post it as a website. Others wanted to do it on a trifold, and the others want to do it, and then a third group want to do it a presentation. But what really helped a lot is that we were able to integrate language into that. So they were learning the word motif. They were learning a lot of food items and drinks to be able to communicate about what they ate, what they drank, and all the things. And they even learned how to greet each other in a rocky way. So not necessarily the formal Arabic, but the dialect that they wanted to learn in Iraq. So it was very fascinating for them, and it actually went a little bit of more popular. It's like, oh, Arabic immersion, represent some students represent Madif, and they went there. So end of that project, they learned social studies, they learned science, and they were able to integrate Arabic with both.
That's so
Wow,
cool.
and that's amazing, and they were learning
Yeah,
culture, they were learning
and culture,
just
of course. Yeah,
regular how to communicate in general, architecture,
yeah.
and, if I could tie it back to, well, I forgot what I was gonna say.
And technology, because we
No, I
integrated.
know what I
Sorry
was
to
gonna
cut
say.
you there, because some of them, they decided they wanted to make their own website.
Yeah.
And they also acted as researchers. Like, so for them, it's not just getting a piece of information. They actually went into the computer. I give them even like some of the research articles, like in universities. And they were like, some of them was like, I'm going to read it. And it was really fun because we cut it down to make it more simpler for the medical, like, not sorry, college students. It's like more of middle school students, but they were able to read, annotate, write their notes. So it was so fun for them to make their own choices. And that's one of the big things for project-based learning is student voice and choice. You would ask the students, how would you like to present your work? What would you like to do? How would you like to learn that? So some of them wanted to research more about the economy and the culture of Iraq. Others want to research about the science of it, like what's so different between weather here and weather there, between Houston and Iraq. So it was so fun that you see also each one has different interests, but each one was able to contribute to that project.
Language proficiency isn't a single moment, it's a journey.
At Avant, we support the entire proficiency cycle, from learning to assessing real-world language use to certifying skills that open doors beyond the classroom. Our connected platform gives educators clear data, less guesswork, and meaningful ways to recognize what learners can truly do with language.
If you're looking for a better way to support growth, from first practice to verified proficiency, visit avantlanguage.com.
Avant, the language proficiency company. Well, that's what you remind me what I was going to mention was just that Marnina and I were talking just yesterday, actually, with Brandy about how good research leads to more questions instead of this idea of I'm now an expert. And so your kids, you put them in a position to learn something new, and then that sparked more curiosity in them. And then they were then curious to do the research further on this topic. And so what you're describing, that whole process of research, maybe because you're a researcher and you've modeled that for them, now you're teaching them that. And that's just that spread of curiosity, and then find out the answer, and then that leads to more questions. And so it was just, that's what kind of came to mind. I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it is a passion for me to do research. And I'm constantly doing research just to dig and see what's going on around. Speaking about research, one of the biggest thing that it's blew me away is that we looked into our science data scores. Our students, they take their test in English, but they learn science in Arabic. And listen to this, we are number 5 top schools in comparison to 273 schools in the district. We are the top 5 in our science scores for the students. I feel like language play a role here, right?
That's
We are
amazing.
the only immersion in the top 5. All other schools are monolingual. So to
Wow.
me, that's a big deal. Like our
Yeah.
students are doing all the metacognition. They have the higher order thinking level. Like if you think about it, let's talk Bloom's taxonomy, the easiest way of learning language, which is the foundation, is what? Memorizing words.
Mm-hmm.
So remembering and then memorizing and then applying by just reviewing or just doing a spelling test and that's it. But project-based learning take that to even higher level. They started to do comparison, they started to analyze, they started to do inquiry research. That takes them even higher and higher, and with that make the language a deep meaning. So they learn it, they learn it with passion because they wanted to produce something they are interested at.
That's amazing, and your
Yeah.
results are amazing. I do have one quick question. I know Marnina wants to steer us
Mhm.
to AI, but I have a quick question about this too. Is how so when you organize the project-based learning, is it between the English-speaking partner teacher and the Arabic teacher? Like, is there any crossover between the two, or is it completely isolated in the sense that I know that that part happened in Arabic, but
Yeah.
is there some crossover in the topics, like in the general learning? So, like what they're learning in science, what they're learning in social studies might have some crossover to what they're doing in the target language.
So it is tough, but we have to teach it. Like we usually go to a training to all teachers. They have to learn what's project-based learning and how good a project or how a good project-based learning can be when we do the interdisciplinary approach. With project-based language learning, there's many approaches. It can be only one subject, like an Arabic teacher who teaches science can just work on her own. But it would be more meaningful if the teacher cooperate with other teachers. So, for instance, I had a social studies lesson for a social studies teacher to learn. It would be more meaningful for an Arabic teacher to collaborate with that social studies teachers and integrate with that. So, it's easier on the elementary level to cooperate with other teachers because sometimes, like in our school, for instance, we have a teacher in kindergarten, they just self contained, they teach all subjects. But as they grow older, sometimes they have 2 or 3 teachers, still easier to collaborate. But when they go to middle and high school, every subject was a teacher. So it gets a little bit harder, but I think it's more on the student because the reason for project-based learning that increase the curiosity is the student take ownership of learning and the teacher is just facilitating. The teacher is not teaching. The work is on the student. So if you go into a classroom, you would see the teacher just rotating, monitoring, but really the students are the one who's doing the research. So if a student learns something in science, but they are investigating another thing in social studies, you don't need the science teacher. He had the knowledge here and he can go back and check what he has. So it's all in here. So I think it's doable. I think it's easier. The only challenge that I have seen personally with other teachers is that they get so intimidated when the students are in charge than they are in charge in the classroom. So it's not really the collaboration, it's more of the classroom control and management. And it is normal because students gets really excited, they can get loud, teacher would feel like they're out of control. But if you really think about it, in a project-based learning class, you would see students are speaking loud, yelling, laughing, and digging, and you will see the classroom messy. You will see, poster boards here and pictures there and visual there. In a normal classroom setting, it's a traditional setting. Everyone is sitting, writing quietly, independent work. There's no interaction. But with language, what do you want? You want
Right.
to interact, right? You want them to talk. You want them to listen. You want them to read. They do all communication skills in just one class. But with normal language setting traditional, they can either read for 30 minutes or 20 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever. They only read, nothing else, right? And that's you still want them to read, but that's really not the end goal. You want them to do something with what they read, otherwise they would forget that.
I love that you're also talking about this idea of making that bridge between content areas and making the case for you're not sacrificing time in the content or
Yeah.
sacrificing learning to incorporate the language. Because I taught in an immersion school, and that was always a lot of pressure I felt. I have
Hmm.
to get these test scores, I have to get these minutes in the content area to make sure my students perform. When in reality, you're seeing that's not necessarily
No,
something
yeah.
you're sacrificing. You're letting them drive that learning and let them be engaged. Like a noisy classroom is a
Hmm.
good thing to see. So my question with this of this amazing student driven, student inquiry, everything's at their fingertips. How has that changed with AI? Or how does that come into play?
So AI, when it first started, it really kind of blew me away. I found out
Mhm.
like there's a fear, and to me, it's like some people were very pessimistic with it. They feel like, oh, they're going to take over the world, and we're not going to do anything. There's going to, ban so many jobs because AI is back in place. But other people who are very, very optimistic, it's going to solve humanity problems. It's going to do everything for us. But it's really, if you think about it, I think the Goldilocks rule is like the happy medium. Like
Mhm.
30 years ago, or maybe not even 30 years ago, I would say 10, 15 years ago, when computers started to go into the classrooms, people made a big deal about it. It's like, oh no, the students will be able, like, well, the computers first enter classroom. There was very big fear. People were like worried students would stop thinking, stop writing, stop calculating, right?
Mhm.
But that anxiety and that technology would, I don't know. I feel like people look at it different now. Now you cannot go to a classroom without a student having a technology in one single day. They have to have a
Totally.
technology.
Mhm.
Their assignments online. They communicate digitally as well. Like they have to communicate sometimes with other teachers on a digital basis. It like when COVID hit, oh, what we did, we have to go back to computers.
Mhm.
Everybody was on the computers, so computer is an essential thing now. Now let's look that into AI and what's happening now with AI. We are in a discomfort with some people. It's the early stage, and that's normal to be uncomfortable. But the history tells us that tools don't replace thinking, or
Mhm.
pedagogy does. But if students lack strong foundation, technology will show it more. It will expose it. If they have strong foundation, technology accelerates it and it will help them. And that's
Mhm.
what I've seen. Like I've seen the difference between students who are using AI as a tool to be able to enhance their proficiency levels, or students like, for instance, the simple thing I would say, I had student who's very high advanced proficiency level, and they had an idea to create a story. She went to AI and she had characters as plants, and she created a story with that. Now, she's not the writer, but she's the reader and the editor. She had to read, she had to edit, she had to go back and change. So if you think about it, it deepened the thinking.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you know about Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
He's
Mhm.
a public speaker. He said the world is changing. Instead of people being writers, you will see people being more editors.
Hmm.
And with becoming editing, you will see tons of books now is written because AI helps you to write, a lot. And so many people can be authors. But what some meaningful books are is when you read it, when you edit it, when you tweak it, when you make it yours. And that's what I've
Mhm.
seen in so many students, especially like in the older grades, that even my kids in high school, they take AI and they have an idea, for instance, a project, and they would think, I really like the idea, but I don't know how to take it further. And I was like, okay, how about you just ask, AI platform, and they enter their prompts and they come up with more ideas. And I've learned from the students not to copy paste AI.
Mhm.
I've learned from the students,
Yeah.
I don't like it this way. I want it to be make it my own. And they start
Mhm.
tweaking and changing. So it does enhance proficiency. It enhances the thinking by making it more deep, and they dig deeper, especially when they start researching something. And nowadays AI is really, it's improving a lot, and it give you the resources where you can find more things. So they take these links or the resources, they go back and they read more about it, and it's helped accelerate learning by not wasting time searching for the information. It's actually more time reading and getting to understand and comprehend the information.
I like that you posed what Simon Sinek said and made it your own about people becoming more editors with the use of AI and how important that still is, and that still requires so much thinking in the language, right? So our kids are still thinking in the language, even if they didn't initially write whatever the piece is. And that brings me to my question, because I work a lot with early literacy. So,
Hmm.
what are ways that we help kids at the early levels that they're just learning, decoding and the basics, the foundations of reading and writing? Is that appropriate for them to be using AI tools? What's the way? What are the best advice that you and guidelines that you can give to teachers that are curious and they're not scared? They want to use it, but they just want to make sure they're doing it in the best way for
In
their
the right
students.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think actually AI is a great personal tutor when it comes to early stage of the novice level and proficiency levels. It can help students to practice. So for instance, I'm not a fluent French speaker, but I like to enhance my language. I'm very early stage of French, but I used AI to make a practice role play with AI. So before speaking with a partner and building that confidence, you know that students can, or many students actually, they had a good amount of vocabulary, but when the minute you tell them to talk in the language, they get a little bit like unconfident about it, and they get a little bit pulled back and withdrawn. They don't want to do it, especially in front of public. AI, when it came in, it helped build that confidence by practicing. And sometimes it's correct the pronunciation, which is to me is fascinating. It's like, wow, there's some AI websites that they will be able to correct the way they pronounce things. It check the grammar, check vocabulary. And I think when you say writing, it does help with providing sentence stems for early students. It does provide for writing sentence starters, just few vocabularies to be able to help them to do like a closed sentence. So there's so many ways and tools that they can ask AI, or teachers can have AI work for them to serve the early age students by creating alternative responses, or by maybe check grammar or vocabulary, or providing some different ways of sentence starters. Although I sometimes call myself creative, I get stuck in ideas, and I get stuck when I do lesson plan. I was like, I don't know what else to do. And AI is my golden coin in that when it comes to places like they get you ideas like outside of your normal thinking, right? Outside of your
Totally. Yeah.
personality.
Yes.
So
It
Marnina
also
and I
allows
both
you
talk about
to
it. Oh, go ahead. I was just gonna tell a little personal story on Marnina and I. We both use our chat GPT, at times in our work or in personal life. And so we've even named our chat GPT. So like I talk to Lexi all the time about things because I've run out of ideas or need some help editing something. And I
I
don't know if
like
you
that.
want to share
I'm gonna
yours.
take this idea from you.
Yeah,
I got it
mine
from
is Chatty
Give it a
Cathy.
name.
yeah,
Chatty Cathy, or Chatty for short.
yeah, that's hers.
Yes.
'Cause it's, but I guess a thing that I'm wondering about, because I too use AI a lot, especially when I've got like, you've got the seeds planted of an idea, but you don't know what to do with it. You're like
Yeah.
stuck at what's next, or how do I make this better? Or I'm writing an email and I know it's just like way too wordy. How do I pare it down? How do I
Yeah.
express myself more
Or
concisely?
sugarcoat it. It's
Right.
a
How do I
crucial
make it?
conversation or crucial email, like you need to for a
Mm,
client or a parent. It's like,
mm,
let's sugarcoat that one.
let's make this a little like later. But I think I'm able to kind of vet the responses I'm given because I have that knowledge of what is appropriate, what is correct. And when it gives me resources that are not accurate, or responses that are not great, or leads, how do you teach students to be able to edit AI responsibly, be able to think about it critically? And, now that you're talking about with project-based learning, they have so many resources at their fingertips and they're able to choose their paths. How do you
Hmm.
support students in choosing accurate or responsible paths? And how does that come into play in teaching with AI?
So I talk to the students before using AI about the difference between AI and humans.
Mm,
AI handles remembering, but human must handle evaluating, how to evaluate things. So, and also
I like
AI
it.
had biases. Human beings, you have common sense. You are more empathetic. Also, you have feelings. AI does not have feelings. It's just very blank. So it's really to teach students the differences, and then let them have to try and check their work and then come back. Because I had so many students who they want something, for instance, student council, they wanted a party or a dance party, whatever. They would draft a long email, send it to the administration, which I'm one of them. and you can tell it's clearly AI. So I take that as a learning opportunity. I print the email and so like go back to them. I'm like, okay, let's word it in a way that's not scripty, not very machine writing. I want to see your personality in there. Do you usually
Mhm.
say that word? Is this how you write it? How you say it is different. So let's retry that again. And this is when I opened their eyes, is like, I need to change this to make it my own, to tweak it in my own way. So AI became the one that provides meaning, vocabulary, the scripts, but the students are the one who need to compare. They need to judge to see the tone, the biases, and that when they come more creative and they start producing authentic product. So to me, when they say I used AI to produce that, I still consider that authentic. If you went back and you made your edits, you make it your own, you compared, you took some stuff out. It's like, this is not how I write things. This is not how I say things. I never use that vocabulary words. I would rather want to use another word. So that's to me still authentic because AI helped them to be more deeper, higher in proficiency, and more professional the way they present things.
I love
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah.
even did something similar with my own son. He was working on a project and he's like, "Oh, let me have ChatGPT fix it." And so he put in a prompt like, "Fix this paragraph for me," and it completely rewrote the paragraph. And I was like, "Huh, does that sound like you?" He goes, "No, that sounds nothing like me." And I was like, "Why don't you try giving it a different prompt? Why don't you say
Yeah.
something like, edit this paragraph for grammar, usage, and vocabulary or something, that wouldn't take away his voice and what he had actually said. So he tried that and it came back sounding like him, but just a better version of him, and he was
Yeah.
It
like,
is a better version for
"Oh,
sure. Yeah.
okay."
Yeah.
And so I think just, like you said, showing, like reading it out loud, back out loud to them, letting now, do you really talk like that? I can picture this whole lesson in my head. You going, do
Yeah.
you really use that word? And
Do
then
you
being like,
really write it this
no,
way?
not really.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
It's funny
really
because
wise
I
of you
was,
to share those tools with us, those
yeah.
ideas with us.
Of course. And I just wanted to add that I was working with my son yesterday. He's first grader, 7 years old, and he wanted to do a project about the teachers made it free. It's a gifted and talented project. Everyone can choose whatever they want. She gave them some ideas, but all the ideas that was mentioned, it wasn't with math. And he's so passionate about numbers, counting, and math. And then he started talking about he has no patience at all. Like he is still 7 years old, has no patience whatsoever about not to search or read about anything. So he started talking about how numbers are created. So I acted like I don't know how numbers are created. How about you search it up? And then the minute you put it on Google, Gemini comes out and it'll just give you some, scripts about how things are created. And it started for him as like, oh wow, I'd like to learn more about the Roman numerals. And then he's like, okay, what else? Like, let's see what else can we learn about numbers. And then he started digging into the Hindu Arabic and then the tally marks. And then at the end, he decided he wanted to make his own counting system.
Wow,
So
that's
that's
so
like, to me,
cool.
it blew me away. It's like, oh my God, this is so smart. I didn't even think about it. Like, I thought he was only going to do a project about different kinds of how
Mm,
numbers
mhm.
originated, how it's developed from numerals, Roman numerals up till now. But it didn't occur to me that after all that, he wanted to make his own counting system. So he did flashcard yesterday and he said, I'm going to make the ones as circle. I'm going to make the hundreds as a heart, and I'm going to make a diamond as tens. And then he put down as like 156. Let's
Wow.
write that in shapes. I was like, this is really cool, Murad. Let's just put that in a trifold and show it to your teachers. I'm sure you will impress them that way. So end of that lesson I learned from my interaction with my son about AI, it made them more creative and think deeply.
Mhm.
They really, it just made me feel like doing by hand is so different than just reading and getting information, right?
Mhm. Mhm,
So
yeah.
that's what sparks the curiosity for me. Is like, wow.
Well, your story made me think of how I think of Lexi, my chat GPT is she's like my thought partner. I mean, I don't when in before in life could I have an actual thought partner sitting at my desk with me at all times 24/7. So if I'm stuck and I'm trying to brainstorm or I'm trying to review something or like you said, think outside the box differently than I think
Mhm.
of, I can go on there and say, "Well, help me think through XYZ, and I do it personally and professionally. I mean, I do it in all
Yeah.
areas of life, and so, having that other person, so to speak, there to help you, think through things can push your thinking, and it sounds like it pushed that Gemini pushed your son's thinking to a
Yeah.
whole different level that you might not have pushed him to, or that
No.
even his teacher might not have pushed him to, simply because that's the way the algorithm, wrote it, to push your son. But, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's exciting that opens the door for endless possibilities in my mind. But the
It
important thing
it
that
definitely did.
Marina always
Yeah.
brings up too is that there's this balance. Like, okay, because I happen to know a lot about world languages and immersion and teaching and literacy, I then know when it's steering me wrong.
Yeah.
Because I have learned also quickly, it will steer you in the wrong path ever so quickly and ever so confidently if you're not careful. And so
That's true.
having that discerning ability to say, "Well, that sounds an awful lot like, the last set of suggestions that you gave me. I feel like you're just repeating what you just told me yesterday," because it can do stuff like that, And so I
Mhm.
think having to still do that critical thinking ourselves, the judging you said, being able to judge, being able to compare,
Yeah.
those skills, if we're not helping our students develop those, that's when that fear of becoming these mindless beings who can't create and can't do,
Yeah.
that's a problem, in my
I
opinion. I don't
I
know what.
wanted to touch about sorry, Liza. I just wanted to you when you said that there's a couple of stories that changed
Yeah,
AI for me,
tell us.
like for students who are novice level just came into our school. We were working, me and another Arabic teacher last year, about how to make Arabic is simpler for them. And AI came into place when it comes to that. So I was able to upload my voice into one of the AI apps. And when I uploaded my voice, I would write a short story and I make it different proficiency levels. And I post that and it will come out in my voice. And then I
Oh,
post it and
cool.
it was so beautiful. We were able to make short stories, even visuals using AI.
Yeah.
And we create the visuals just to suit that story. So I have the same story, but students who are in novice level can read their own level and listen to the story as well. While students who are intermediate or advanced can also have their own same theme, same vocabulary words, it just different proficiency levels.
I love that.
So that's just blown me away, you know?
Right.
And there's another personal story. Like, I am very big passionate when it comes to Arabic calligraphy. I just love the art of Arabic calligraphy. And there's so many instances here in US. It's like I wanted to create things by hand. I could not see anything. Like I can't see anything to buy. Like even just simple like t-shirts, clothing, tumblers, writing stickers, stuff like that. This is again when AI came into place because I started like, okay, teachers like to craft stuff themselves. So let me just try. And I did try a couple of different things until I was able to produce Arabic calligraphy writing using AI. And then I used Cricut Machine. I used to cut it. And then I was like, let's make a t-shirt for our Arabic students.
So
And I started doing like
cool.
some scripts on t-shirts. And this is how I started my small business. Like it's just an idea and it's a lack of resources that make me think about it with the AI help. And I was like, wow, the world is really changing, isn't it?
I really love that, and that idea of starting with one idea and how much it grows with AI and all the examples you've given with project-based learning. And I know you talked about this fear that teachers have to like unleash and let the students guide it. What are for listeners that are hearing this and are like me, like it's blowing my mind, the potential with it, but it's
Yes.
also
Mhm.
like, where do I even begin and how do I'm sure there's certain techniques or tactics you use to help facilitate that and get the students there, and also some guardrails of keeping the center of the content that you're teaching, the units, the themes. whatever you're doing, because they do still have a certain curriculum to follow, but how do you balance that? And how do you really center it with the students, but integrate what you know as a teacher is necessary, and making sure
Mhm.
that I know students' creativity can be wonderful, and also we want some guardrails or something in there.
Yes, so we started with a contract with the students. So I would have a student sign a contract, and that was just an idea to the teachers, like have them sign a contract and teach them. You can use AI, but you have to be honest with yourself about the usage of AI. However, if I had a doubt that this is not your work that you produced 100% or at least 80% and you don't understand it, I will start asking questions verbally to answer
Oh,
me
mhm.
about the content you wrote.
I like
If you
that.
didn't answer with the same content you wrote, that means you did not produce it. That means it's not you. So they can still use
Mm.
AI, but they have to understand what they wrote. They have to be able to talk about it. And they have to have that highest level of understanding that they can already to teach me what did they learn.
I
If
love
they
that, because that's a
didn't,
deeper
yeah.
understanding.
And
Yeah.
and I would change the
Good.
grade. I would tell them to just feel free to change the grade because if they didn't, that means it's not their work.
Hmm.
And they can grade it that way.
Mm.
But it's really also building trust. Like the students are I would always say little kids are like a dough. You shape the dough,
Mm.
right? The
Mhm.
more that you build trust in them and have that trust relationship between you and them, they will be very transparent about showing what they can and they cannot do and what help they are getting from AI. So a
Yeah.
little bit by little bit, they will be able to get it. But as I said, it is very fearful for teachers, but they just have to, as you said, also plant the seed. Just start with a little thing by a
Mhm.
little thing and build it from there.
Yeah, but
I love
trust, that's huge. I love that you said
Yeah.
trust. I think that's a big part of all education, language
Mhm.
education, any kind of education, good education. We have to trust our kids. They have to be able to trust us. So
Yeah.
I love that you brought that into the picture.
And when you start with trust and belief in them, they rise to it too, I think is
Absolutely.
another,
Yeah.
like, a self-efficacy. And as we sort of near the wrapping up, I just wanted to pose to you, if I think you're very forward thinking. You focus on how can we make learning really fit this moment in 21st century? How can we use learning to really build cultural bridges, to really give students competencies in our language classroom and beyond? So I'm wondering for you, when you look at that future of multilingual education and multiliteracy, especially for less commonly taught languages, what gives you hope, or what message do you have of what you see coming that makes you excited for this future?
For the learning of language, I feel in this digital age, we don't need less thinking. We need deeper thinking. And when language is tied to inquiry and experience, it becomes more than a content. It just becomes cognition. And just looking at it that lens and having this as a tool provide purpose for learning language, this is the future is. And I think for it, it's not just Arabic, but learning languages should be really for everyone. With that digital age we are in right now, it's become very reachable to reach even student exchange program with anywhere in the world. So it's really becomes a tool and provide meaning and purpose.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very,
Yeah.
very
Yes.
timely and wonderful advice and hopeful words from you. I very much appreciate
Thank you.
that. As
Yeah.
Marnina mentioned, we're close to our time. So thank you so much for being with us today, for sharing your wisdom, your experience, your stories, and your classroom with us.
Thank
It
you.
has been such a joy to talk with you. And let me just wrap up for our listeners. If you were intrigued by anything in this episode and want to add to this conversation, please comment below. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your networks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
All opinions expressed in this podcast and the comments are solely those of the individual and not necessarily those of Avant.